I moved to Wilmington in 1977 at the request of an old friend. I'd been living in the wilds of Northern California for 6 months, thinking that if I was in a really reclusive environment, I could do better work, but the opposite was true, and I was really feeling quite lost. So she invited me to come to Wilmington, and I discovered that I could make a living as a house painter here, which I did for 40 years. And also work on my art. And I liked the city. It was just the right size, so I stayed. In the beginning, living here, there were just a handful of us artists, and we banded together and had shows together. Now, of course, there are hundreds of artists here and many more galleries. But I always felt that I could just do my own thing. That's all I really wanted to do. And once I moved downtown in 1982, I had an outbuilding in the backyard that I could use for a studio. And that was really helpful, getting my work out of the house and having my own place to work. So I could work on my art evenings after house painting, all weekends. Any day I wasn't working, it was right here all the time. Hi, welcome to my studio. Come on in. I work in oil pastel, and collage, and with all three of these you can go over something again and again. So if you don't catch it the first time, just keep working. So that layer effect is what works best for me, and I just try to resolve things as I go along. I think the figure always seems to come in, whether I wanted to, or not. Last year I think I was doing very dominant figures. Now little glyphs of people seem to show up, or you'll see eyes that will suggest a face. These things keep showing up whether I plan on them or not. So I think that's the most recurring thing. And relationship is just such an important thing, whether it's in the figurative work, if it's a relationship between people and animals, or animals and animals, or in this glyph mode that I'm in, it's just a relationship between shape and shape. I really don't know what anything's going to turn out. And sometimes I go through several processes to get to the final piece. So I may start out one way, and then if that's not working, I'll oftentimes just obliterate it, and in the course of obliterating it, leaving enough little pieces behind that becomes the new piece. There are a million ways you can approach a canvas and play with paint, so I just keep trying for new ways to get new results. I was at a Zen monastery in 1981 up in upstate New York, and I was there for 3 months, and I didn't bring any painting supplies with me, but I really missed making art. So the gatekeeper there brought me magazines to work with, and I started cutting up little shapes in my room. That's when I began making collages, because I didn't have any paints. And I loved it, and I've been doing it ever since. I use a lot of figurative images in my collages. I don't steal anybody else's figure like from a magazine. I create my own figures from bits and pieces of something. I like repetition a lot. I like to create patterns. And there's a petal shape that you've seen in many of my collages. I don't even know its origin. It might have come from some old French still life of a watermelon or part of a flower. I don't know. It was a random shape that I cut out, and I've used it a lot, making it different colors and changing the size as well. The Musings series came from the National Geographic. It requires many magazines because a lot of the pages come out muddy and aren't workable, but eventually there's enough to harvest. So it's just a matter of applying the solvent to the pages, closing up the magazine, coming back later, ripping them all out, letting them air. Then you can sort of see which will work as a landscape or as a background. And I have a little 6-inch window that I use to move across the image to see which part of it would work in these 6-inch musing collages. So then I would cut that out, have it printed, and then apply it to the canvas paper, and then I had a little black edge that I drew around that just sets each one off too. So they all started the same, but then I used different details to enhance each one. And these details came from my own scraps. So this is something that I still use in my collages, whatever comes of those. That doesn't seem to work on any other magazine except National Geographic. After I did 50 of the musings, I was done with that. I wanted to work larger. I wanted to get back to paint. So I just went back to the studio and experimented with new techniques because I didn't want to go back to the paintings that I'd done before. I didn't want to do collage. I just wanted it to be paint, and I wanted it to be abstract. So with that in mind, I began on this latest series. I've taken a different approach than I ever had before. Usually I would work against a black background, but this time, even though I started with a black canvas, once the black was dried, I applied white oil paint that stayed wet for several hours so I could work with it. So once the whole canvas was covered with white, I carved a drawing into it with the back of the paintbrush, and that revealed the black line of what was underneath. Then I had a white canvas with a black line, and I colored those shapes in that were created by the line. And when all those colors dried, then I did a series of transparent glazes over that. So this harkens back to ways that I've worked in the past, but in a way it was a kind of new thing in itself. By varying the drawing, I got pretty different results. In the beginning, I was starting with working with my left hand, which I'm not left-handed, and my eyes closed, and just doing big sweeping gestures over the whole canvas. And then when I felt like I'd probably filled the canvas, I stepped back, opened my eyes, and I assessed it, whether it was an interesting line drawing or not. If it not, I could wipe it out, and if so, I would just let that dry and fill in those shapes and then proceed with the glazes after that. But then I got into this little thing of making like little glyphs, little scribbles that didn't connect with each other. And this I did with my right hand and my eyes open, just filling the canvas without thought, without any plan, just little by little making these gestures and shapes. And when they dried, then coloring them in and then going over with the transparent glazes. So it gave a very different effect. It's kind of playful and little hieroglyphic-y, childlike and primitive, whimsical fun. I think the challenge is always to stay fresh and not repeat something that's been successful in the past, because every time you try to repeat an old thing, it comes out a bit diluted because you're not coming from that fresh place. So that's why I switch around with various techniques just to get that fresh feeling again. Also, I think you can really get in your own way. I can get in my own way by overthinking it or by being filled with doubt at the beginning when I have no idea where it's going to go. And that doubt can be paralyzing and just can't dare to do a thing. So you have to push beyond that and make yourself put down something, just anything. And then when that dries, come back the next day, you have something new to work on. So it's just a matter of layering, and eventually something comes of it. So you have to believe in the process and not let the doubt hold you back. I hope I can continue to be motivated on this journey. I hope doubt won't hold me back.